Got a real treat for you now. I'm going to be introducing and bringing to the stage in just a minute Robert L. Wallace. He is an internationally known entrepreneur, author, business consultant, and keynote speaker. He's got more than 30 years of industry experience spanning energy IT, and executive consulting. Now, Bob leverages his experience and his expertise to educate and inspire entrepreneurs, executives, and audiences around the world. He grew up in Baltimore in the projects amidst poverty and racial segregation. Now, Bob overcame social and economic obstacles through his own rags to riches story to become a successful serial entrepreneur. After being groomed by innovative industry leaders like IBM, DuPont, and Procter & Gamble, Bob leveraged his experience to establish and lead 3 companies: BITHGROUP Technologies Incorporated, an IT services provider; Bith Energy Incorporated, an energy services company; and through robertwallace.com, EntreTech Learning Systems, LLC, which offers web-based training for women and minority business owners. And it's interesting that he's in an energy company because, as you'll see, he exudes energy. He really does. Currently, Bob serves as an affiliate professor of business at the Loyola University Selinger School of Business, where he lectures on innovation in the global economy. And previously, he earned his Bachelor's of Science degree in mechanical engineering and applied mechanics at the University of Pennsylvania, and his MBA degree from the Amos Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth College, where he began his research on the successful characteristics of entrepreneurs. Give Bob Wallace a round of applause.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. How you guys doing? You okay? Okay, you ready to rock and roll? Okay. How many here are having interest in creating wealth? How come every hand didn't go up when I said that? Every hand, you should have had 2 hands up that went up, right? We're going to talk about that. So let me just get through that. So I want to talk to you about, as Tony mentioned, some research, right? So when I was a grad student at the Amos Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth, it was always amazing to me. They would bring in all of these successful entrepreneurs, like the Lotus founder. You guys are too young to know about Lotus, but Lotus 123 used to be the spreadsheet before Excel. They would bring in all of these successful Wall Street, folks. And what I noticed was that none of them were women or people of color. I thought that odd. And so as an MBA student, I said, I'm going to do whatever I can to try to understand why that is and then what we need to do to change that dynamic, right? So that we see more people of color and women in the entrepreneurial ranks. And so that led me to do research while at Dartmouth in the business school there. And then that led to a couple of books being published. And so I read a couple of books. You're going to hear about this one right now, which is Black Wealth, which is actually my second book, right? So Black Wealth is more about how do we use entrepreneurship in the community to create wealth. And I'll get into some more detail about that. Written another book called Black Wealth Through Entrepreneurship. Soul Food, which is another book that I wrote, which talks about the soft side of entrepreneurship, the principles of success for people of color and for women. And we'll touch a little bit on this subject in this session also, right? And so I've got a number of different book projects. Some of them are here, some of them I didn't bring. But I want to give you an idea that this has been, I am constantly looking at and researching how do we advance the progress of women and people of color as entrepreneurs and in business. This afternoon for lunch, you're going to hear me talk about this book, which I think is really important, which is how do you use alliances and partnerships to build your businesses. I will submit to you that is the only way in the global economy to build your business. The day of the Long Ranger, gone forever, never to return. And so I'm going to talk to you about that at lunchtime a little bit, and of course, Black Wealth. So there's a couple of projects I had that really are important. Now, one of the things I've learned that when we do not use our gifts, it's kind of like this picture here, right? It's a story I tell about this old bird. The bird was a lazy bird, and he had these beautiful beautiful feathers. And so he was, one day the hunter was kept trying to get this bird So finally, he couldn't get the bird, so he says he convenes a meeting with the bird. This bird looks like that, with these beautiful feathers. And so he said, let's cut a deal. And the deal is, Mr. Bird, for every feather you give me, every day that we meet, you give me a feather, and I will give you your day's portions of worms to feed you and your family. And the bird thought for a second. He said, that sounds pretty good. You mean you're going to meet with me every day, I will give you one of my feathers, and in return, you will give me my worms, food for the day for me and my family? He said, yeah. Bird said, good, deal, let's do it. So every day, the hunter and the bird would meet. He would give him a feather. He would give worms. Next day, a feather and worms. Next day, feather and worms. Finally, one day, the bird looks in the mirror, and guess what? He's featherless, and he's fat, and he's out of shape, unable to compete. That's what we do when we do not intentionally use our gifts that God's given us, right? And we don't want to be like that bird, right? Can I get an amen to that? Y'all are pretty quiet in here, okay? So, now, I'm glad to see so many young people in the room because the PRT is interested in taking our 500 plus years of knowledge and investing it into these young people, my two twin friends over here, right? And these other young entrepreneurs, right? To invest it in you because young people, if you look at human history, young people have changed the world. If you look at every human development throughout history, and I've done it, all right? Looked at the Tuskegee Airmen, they flew red tails. They were young men, in this case, young men. Muhammad Ali was in his 20s, changed the boxing world, right? And you go down the list, the March on Washington. My mom and dad were there at the March on Washington in 1963. And that time, they were pretty young. But they were about changing the world, right? Then you had the Civil Rights Movement, led, once again, by young people, right? And we can go down the list. You go down the list. The Vietnam movement to end Vietnam, young people, right? South African anti-apartheid movement. We were in South Africa when that process was going on, when they freed Nelson Mandela, right? Young people, right? And you can go on, election Barack Obama. You know who elected President Obama? Young people. Because young people decided to vote and to get involved, right? Change America and change the world. The Arab Spring movement, young Middle Eastern kids, right? Occupy Wall Street. It's amazing, young people's influence. So my point to you is that young people can change and will change the world. So we're looking at how we do that. Dr. King's War on Poverty, again, young people. This idea of wealth and entrepreneurship is important and an opportunity. Because why? Because the world is changing. One of my favorite books about one of my mentors, Mr. Friedman, right? He said, the world is flat. That's his book, The World is Flat. Why? Because all barriers are neutralized. When I was your age, we had these barriers, right? We had time and space and distance were barriers. Guess what? In the internet economy, all the barriers are gone. Your competition truly is global competition. So that is our reality. I call this the new economy. So in my book on black wealth, this is how I define the new economy. I said the world is changing. Why? Because of four major reasons, right? Number one, technology. You agree, Lance? Can I get an amen there, Lance? Technology, right? Second change, velocity of change. That means, beloved, that the speed at which change is occurring is accelerating. It is accelerating. And therefore, that will change the whole dynamic of our world. The third reason is knowledge and intelligence. My friends, you can make yourself an expert on any subject you choose if you only are willing to take the time to invest in this. Because now the knowledge is there at your fingertips, right? New economy world. And lastly, entrepreneurship. These four forces, I will submit to you, are changing the world. That's why I'm here to tell you that what we do in the PRT and what we're talking about today, entrepreneurship and what I call intrapreneurship, which is being entrepreneurial in a company, right? Using your gifts in a company that you work for, are critical to success. I want to talk to you about why I think it's important. So if I look at the main reason why I think it's important is power. Power. It's getting real quiet in here now when I said power. Y'all a little nervous about that word power? What is power? What is power? Who here wants power? Okay, a few hands always happens. A few folks' hand goes up. Probably 1/3 of the hands go up. Lance is like, okay. Who here wants power? Well, if you use the definition that Dr. King used, which was simply, power is the ability to achieve purpose. Power is the ability to achieve purpose in the face of adversity. Power is the ability to achieve purpose in the face of adversity. Given that definition, who here wouldn't want power? I would suggest we all want power. Ken, can I get an amen to that? Okay. Dr. King put it that way. In the book, my book on black wealth, I said, okay, let's break down this power thing and put it in a capitalistic backdrop. And what I suggested in the book is this triad model. And I said, in a society that is built upon capitalism, for any group in that society to be successful and to be competitive, they have to build this power triad, or they will not be successful. And what are the three lattices of this power triad? The bottom one you can see is called ethnic rooting. Ethnic rooting. And all that simply says is that you understand the contributions that people who look like you have made to the world, right? For all my scientists here and engineers, do you know that the mathematics that we use in our trade was originated in Africa? Did you know that? Lance, teach them that, okay? So ethnic rooting says, I see value in the contribution that people who look like me have made to the world. That's ethnic rooting. Then we have, on the other lattice, we have political power. Political power is simply, as I put it in the book, it's just simply that you have a say, you have some control over how tax revenues are collected and how they are expended, right? This new tax law coming through Congress, pay attention, because it is laying out the guidelines of how we will collect taxes and how they will be spent. Who will pay more, who will pay less. My friends, it will impact your life, your lives and your businesses, depending upon where you stand. Political power, right? The third piece, and I would submit to you, the piece that has been weakest in our community has been economic power. Economic power, or lack thereof. Economic power says I have the ability and the control of my economic destiny. I can control, to a large degree, my economic destiny. That is economic power. I will submit to you that we as a people have not, to a full degree, completed that third lattice of the triad, and women to a large degree as well. And until we do that, we will never be in a powerful position. Therefore, what you will find in a powerless state, you have these Freddie Gray situations, when people have no fear of your ability to make them pay for when they do wrong, right? Power or powerless. So I submit to you that entrepreneurship is a key part to that power base and having power to control your own destiny. The other reason why I would submit to you that entrepreneurship is so critical to creating wealth is this model here. Any MBAs in the room? A couple MBAs. You guys remember this power, this S-curve dynamic, right? When I was in business school, Marcellus, they pounded it into our heads, right? This S-curve model, right? All this is saying is that when there are new developments, whether it's technology or society or whatever it is, it follows the S-curve. That is, it starts out growing slowly, it hits an inflection point, the blue dot there, and then it grows exponentially, that industry, that technology, whatever it is. Then it hits another inflection point shown by the other blue dot, and then that industry or that technology dies. It begins to die, right? If you look at all transitions of new technology or new societal norms, they all have a slow growth, then they hit inflection point, then they grow exponentially, another inflection point, then they die out. But when they die out, another curve comes in to replace them. right? Think about the videotape market, the movie videotape to CD to streaming, data streaming, all right? It's the same S-curve dynamic, right? That's what happens in our world. So it's key for us to be able to capture that. So if I look at wealth, I say, you can tell I'm a typical engineer, right? I have got to have an equation to explain things, right? So in the book, I say that wealth is this. Wealth is M times T times I divided by R. What are they? Well, the M is material resources, right? It's pretty obvious, right? Land, labor, capital, right? The M. Then there is the T. The T is what? Technology. My friends, it doesn't matter how fast you run or where you hide, you will not get away from technology. Whether you're a lawyer, doctor, teacher, sociologist, doesn't matter. You will be impacted by technology. It's going to change the world, and it's changing the world, right? Then we have the I, which is knowledge and intelligence. That's why you are here today. You could have been someplace else, but you chose to be here because you understand the importance of knowledge and intelligence. And thus we have this recreation. Now, what we have also in the model here is the R. What is the R? Resistance. What's resistance? It's called competition. You see, my friends, people who have what you are trying to get do not want you to have it, because then you're competition. Resistance. So any strategy on wealth creation has to take into consideration the reality of resistance. And therefore, in my book, I talk about why that's important and how we remove that barrier to entry. Now, I'm going to jump through this really quickly. Dimensions of wealth: why, what, who. And here I talk about, and you guys know this, wealth is simply, when I talk about wealth, some folks think that I'm talking about Bill Gates, that you got to be a billionaire to be wealthy. No, you don't. Wealth is simply having more money, more resources than you need to survive. That delta is wealth. So with this definition, beloved, anyone can be talking about wealth. You don't have to be Bill Gates. Can I get an amen to that? Okay, so we have that reality. Then there are, as I say in the book, there are steps to wealth: jobs, entrepreneurship, wealth creation, and so forth, right? There's a process that we go through. And in my study, I saw that all the successful entrepreneurs follow the same process, right? And so wealth, as everything in life, is a process. And then there's and I talk about needs, wants, and desires. Young people. One of the mistakes that young people make, I have found, and I have 5 kids, but they're all great kids, right, Taylor? They're great, wonderful kids, right? But one mistake millennials make oftentimes is they want to jump from the want or needs to desires, right? So, for example, we need a place to live, right? But that could be a shack. You could live in a shack. You could live in a one-bedroom apartment, right? You're meeting that need. Then there are wants, then there are desires. So the idea of wealth creation is follow the process, right? You make sure you take care of needs first, and you progress young people through life up into the desires. So one day, if you choose to have a mansion, okay, maybe be blessed and get a mansion. But in first step, take care of your needs. Have a nice, safe place to live, okay? All right. So that's just the process of the evolution. These are some of my quotes I mentioned in the book. You know most of them. Wealth is money you make while you're not working. If you're not working, that sound good to you? A good man blesses his children's children. And my mentor, Reginald Lewis, told me that wealth, he said it so well, wealth is making money while you sleep. Can I get amen to that? So it's all definitions, dimensions of wealth that we can benefit from. So I looked at the world wealth situation, as you probably could appreciate. Most of the wealth is concentrated in the world. This is world wealth. Most of it is concentrated in Europe, North America, and Japan. You see where Africa is? 1%. Although it doesn't match its population globally. So there's some work to be done for people of color and for women to be participants in the wealth equation. That leads me to my model. So in this book of looking at successful business men and women over a 20-year period, I try to analyze what is it that they did and what is it that they do that's made them successful in business, right? Despite racism, sexism, classism, right? And what I came away with was this 4-quadrant model, right? And so with the time I have remaining, I want to step you through this 4-quadrant model because I think it will help you to compartmentalize how you think about business and your own life, right? So quadrant 1, shown here in the blue quadrant here, was know thyself. Know thyself, right? That's quadrant 1. Then quadrant 2 was know thy plan. So blue, know thyself. Red, know thy plan. Then from there, I went to know thy universe. And what that talks about is understand the principles of success in the environment in which you operate, right? And so when I wrote the book Soul Food, that's why I wrote Soul Food. Soul Food talks about the principles of success in business, right? From a women and person of color perspective. What are the rules of engagement in the environment that you operate in? That's important to know that. It will cover that a little bit there. And then the 4th quadrant, shown here in green, know thy resources and make them your own. Know thy resources and make them your own. That is my 4th book on alliances and partnerships, which will be the luncheon theme. How do you get other people to help you? Because you cannot do it by yourself. It's impossible. It's impossible. I have studied successful people for 30 years plus. I have not met a single woman or a single man who said that no one helped them to be successful, not a single one. So the guidelines, the roadmap is pretty clear on what we need to do, okay? So this is the 4-quadrant model that we're going to go through, and I'm going to step you through each quadrant one by one. Quadrant number 1, know thyself. Why is that important? Because it determines your level of capacity to do work and to perform tasks. Dr. Brooks talked about it a little bit in terms of her balance theory about success and there being a balance, right? How do you do that? Well, one thing that really jumps out at me is the issue of value. Value. How many of you here feel that you're valuable? Hey, every hand should go up. You're valuable. How do you calculate? How do you determine your value? Well, there are many ways. This is a little analysis that I did in my research. I said, well, if you take a person, an average person, right, and you broke them up into their chemical composition, right, all these chemicals here, carbon, nitrogen, and all these things, what do you think, and if you could distill that body, that person's body, into all these chemical components, what do you think the market value would be of that person based upon the chemical components that they can be distilled into? What would you guess it is? The market value. It's about $100. It's about 110. 110, okay, I'll take that. $110. Is that your worth? Is that your value? You probably say no. Why? So where does your value come from, beloved? Where does it come from? It comes from the ideas and the thoughts that you entertain. Bill Gates, when he started Microsoft, maybe he started out worth $110. What's he worth now? A couple billion, right? Why? Because of his thoughts and his ideas and the ability to take those thoughts and ideas and make them real. That's the value. So to maximize that value, I'm submitting to you this model. And Dr. Brooks touched upon it, right? Intellectual self, physical self, spiritual self. Yes, I said spiritual self. Now, I will tell you, when my first book was published, and I dared to put in the same sentence, entrepreneurship and spirituality. I took a lot of heat for that. They're like, Bob, what are you talking about? Entrepreneurship and spirituality, they have nothing to do with each other. I said, hogwash. Well, I said a different word, but I can't say that word here, right? Hogwash, right? This is the model. So the idea is, how do we maximize these three selves, right? Let's talk about that. All right, so the idea is maximizing these three selves to be, as Dr. Brooks said, on center, remaining on center. My friends, it will do you no good. Young folks, pay attention. It will do you no good to spend your life, building business, building wealth, and all that, and to get to my age and not be able to enjoy it because your health is bad, because you didn't take care of yourself, as Dr. Brooks said, right? Bad place to be. Bad place to be. And I know a lot of folks who spent their whole life cutting and scraping and trying to build a business and create wealth, but didn't take care of themselves, and they got to the end of the road, had all this money, all these assets, but no physical body or health to benefit and enjoy it. That's a bad place to be. So we don't want to go there, right? So these variations of self, I use these analogies. I use this analysis and analogy to talk about the variations, right? Jackie Robinson was my example of a perfect split. Wall Street guys and gals out there, they kind of off kilter there. And then the spiritual folks who are too spiritual and don't concentrate on their skills, not a good place to be either. So I'm saying to you, I want you to be somewhere like Jackie Robinson, my fraternity brother, was in terms of balance of intellectual, spiritual, and physical self. But what I did notice, though, in research, was that as I looked at Quadrant 1, Know Thyself, right? As I looked at the level of intelligences, or kinds of intelligences or gifts that people had, there were 10 top ones that I really uncovered, right? There were 10, there were more than 10, but there were 10 top ones that I kept seeing over and over again. And these are those 10 gifts, right? Now, why is this important? It's important because your business that you're using to create wealth, your business should be based upon what your gift is. You guys heard Dr. Brooks talk about branding and media and all that. You can tell from her passion and what she's accomplished, that is her gift. I would tell you conversely, that is not my gift. I'm an engineer. I am a scientist. I know math and science. That's what I do well. That's why all my businesses are around math and science, because that's my gift. But what is your gift? Do you know what your gift is? Most people do not, unfortunately. But that's okay. We're here to fix that. So these are 10 top gifts that I saw from the research that I want to share with you. I'm going to go through a few examples so you can get a sense of why this is important. So if I take musical intelligence, who do you know that might have a musical gift? Just give me a name. Who do you know? You guys don't listen to music? Stevie Wonder. Okay, and many other examples of that. Okay. I had Michael Jackson, Chicago, and my favorite, Santana, Earth, Wind, and Fire. My favorite group of all time, Earth, Wind, and Fire. And then right, Taylor, Earth, Wind, and Fire. So we have these folks who have made lots of money and created businesses from their wealth. Michael Jackson. Remember Thriller? A little more volume on that, sir, please. Remember Thriller? Right. The highest grossing album ever in human history, okay? How about these guys? You guys too young to know about Chicago. Any old school in here, Chicago? Okay. A few folks here, right, Tony? Right? Sheila made lots of money, created businesses with music, right? And my favorite group of all time. The best band in human history, Earth, Wind, and Fire. That's right. And then, of course, Mellow Santana. All of these examples are men and women who have taken their gift in music and created businesses and wealth, okay? So if that's your gift, that's good. Spiritual intelligence. Spiritual intelligence. Now, you may think, that doesn't fit. Well, look at these folks. T.D. Jakes, Joel Osteen. Do you know how much they're worth now? And their gift is a spiritual gift. It's helping people to connect to their spirituality, right? They have turned it into a business. Movies and books and CDs. Amazing, okay? So we have these examples there of musical gift. Then we have the idea of spiritual intelligence. Dr. King, I feel, has a, Joel Osteen, spiritual intelligence, that's that gift that people listen to and they're willing to pay money to benefit from. Yes, they do, okay? Then we have this guy, Who's got here? Has he done well? Take his gift again, in case it's music, right? CeCe Winans. I can go down the list. Okay, physical intelligence. Who do you know has physical intelligence, physical gift, who have turned their gift into a business and wealth? I hear Michael Jordan. That's the one I always hear. Why? Because Michael Jordan, what year was it, Lance? I think it was 1998, 99. Fortune magazine did an article on Michael Jordan, right? And they concluded that Michael Jordan, one man, had a $10 billion impact on the economy that year, right? One person, one man, right? So you have these examples, Michael Jordan, Jeter, Beckham, Jeff Gordon, all who have made lots of money in their wealth. Interpersonal intelligence. You guys too young to know about this guy. It's Walter Cronkite, right? He was the guy that all America trusted. Remember those who are old enough, remember when Dr. King, not Dr. King, when President Kennedy was assassinated in 1963. America needed someone who had a calm spirit to calm the country. Because we were like, what in the world is going, they just killed our president. What in the world? That was Walter Cronkite, because that was his gift, that interpersonal intelligence. So people who have that gift tend to be in these kinds of businesses, right, and kinds of professions, like Dr. Brooks, all right? Intuitive intelligence, what is that? Intuitive, what does that mean? Talk to me quickly. Intuition, being able to predict what? The future. Being able to anticipate what will happen, right? So what kind of people do want to have in that? I will submit to you that one of the groups of our society who have a special giftedness and intuitiveness tend to be women. At least in my family. My grandmother, my mother, my wife, my daughter, they have this gift of intuition. Well, if you have that gift, what kind of job might you want to be in? Forecasting, stock and bond trading, management consulting, so forth, okay? So what is your gift and how to determine it? Well, you can look at what do you enjoy and what do people tell you you're good at? What's the feedback you get from people, right? When I was a kid, I always got feedback. You're good at math and science. You're good at math and science. I always got A's in math and science. So it was obvious to me what was my gift, right? But what is your gift? And we move on from there. Spiritual self, I'm going to skip through that. We talked about that a great deal already, but the idea that it is a recognition and leverage of the unseen powers of the universe. Quadrant 2, which is the red zone. Quadrant 2, know thy plan. All I'm saying in Quadrant 2 is, as you're building, using the 4-quadrant model to create your wealth, right, you got to have a plan. Dr. Brooks said in her comments, almost half of the businesses in America do not have a plan. That's amazing. That's astounding, right? But it's true. So the plan, what's the plan? The plan simply is a bridge. It will bridge the present with the future, okay? The present with the future. That's what a bridge does. So Quadrant 2 talks about that. Thank you. So the idea here is leveraging of gratitude, right? Because when you plan, you got to be in the right state of mind, is what I'm saying. The right state of mind. See, if you go into a planning exercise and you down and you're complaining about how tough it is and how people are unfair to you and all this kind of thing, that state, being in that state, you will not be do your best at planning. So the idea is to have a spirit of gratitude. Now, all that says, folks, is this. All it says is, yeah, I may not be where I want to be yet. I may still be struggling to get there, but I am grateful for where I am. That's all it says. And when you're in that state, what you will find is it will impact how you think and how you plan, right? A spirit of gratitude, right? Very important to having a proper planning process and planning exercise. And so I remember when I left IBM and started my company, I always had this idea, this vision of this 911 Carrera Porsche, right? You know what I'm saying, Lance? I wanted, I guess it was the engineer in me, Lance, I wanted this 911 white Carrera Porsche. So one day I saw it on the cover of Motor Trend magazine. So I took a pair of scissors and I cut that picture out, right? And wherever I went, I took that picture with me, right? Every job I took, I had that picture, that 911 Carrera Porsche. And then one day, God blessed me. And I got a 911 Carrera Porsche, looked just like that. Amen. That's right, Tony. Amen. That's right. But it was a happy story, Tony, and a sad story, because I was born and raised in Cherry Hill in South Baltimore. And every time I drove that car, particularly at night, either in Baltimore or in Washington, D.C., what do you think happened to me? Woo! Now, I must confess, a car like that does make you drive fast. So I probably would do that, right? But it was always amazing to me what the officers would say to me. And they must train for this in police academy. Driver's license, registration, give it to them. They looking through that, looking in the back seat. So, sir, tell me, sir, where have you been? Now, this is like around the Rodney King era. You guys don't know Rodney King, Rodney. This is the Black Lives Matter movement. This is like Rodney King, California. So where you been? Well, officer, I was in D.C. for a meeting. Okay, so what brings you here? And you're saying, okay, well, I just told you I was in D.C. I'm going to another meeting. Okay, so where you going? Going to Baltimore to another meeting, right? This line of questioning. Where have you been? Why are you here? And where are you going? And all the time, he's looking in the back seat trying to see if I got some drugs or something like that, you know what I mean? So the idea of holding long enough to see if I can find something wrong, right, then I can really make my move. But this questioning, where have you been? Why are you here? Where are you going? Those are the questions we have to ask in Quadrant 2 in our businesses. Where have you been? Why are you here? And where are you going? If you can answer those three questions, you will be successful at your plan. And so what I talk about here is create the future and work backwards. And that simply says, whatever your vision is, create that vision daily. Create that vision daily. And then work backwards to make that vision a reality. Can I get an amen? When I was in Cherry Hill in South Baltimore in projects, I had a simple vision back then. The vision was I had five brothers, and we were raised in projects, and mom and dad did the best they could, but it was tough. And I just got tired of being poor. Anybody here ever been tired of being? Y'all are rich. I know y'all rich, but I got tired of being poor. So my vision was, let me figure out a way that I can make some money so that we're not poor, all right? Create the future. The future was that, work backwards. And so the idea, the plan is, this model here, I call it my 2x2 rule, is that what it does, if you follow this, I can't go into detail now, but if you follow it, it will give you a path to victory to achieve the vision that you had. For me, it was math and science, through engineering, through business. That was my path. For Dr. Brooks, it may be media and PR. For Tony, the furniture, and for John, logistics. Whatever the path is, you figure it out. For Donna, technology and software. Who knows? Calvin, electrical and engineering and all the electronics. Figure out the path and then follow it, okay? So let me move on to Quadrant 3. Know thy universe, beloved. All that says is this. Know thy universe says, whatever business you're in, that you go into, there are rules of engagement. There are rules of success you have to master in that area. I know Lance is very big into cybersecurity with these young men and his program, all right? Lance will probably tell you, yeah, Bob, there are some rules of engagement in the cybersecurity industry that we need to master. Because you can train them all you want technically, but if they don't understand the rules of engagement in cybersecurity, or in our case, in energy, in solar energy or wind energy, or in Donna's case, software engineering, whatever it is, John's logistics, Calvin electrical, if you don't understand the rules of engagement, you're not going to be successful. I don't care how hard you work or how smart you are. You have to understand how people and companies in your industry, how they maintain and achieve success. And that is Quadrant 3. So we have this idea of understanding that that there's importance. So in my book, Soul Food, this is what I talk about. I talk about the principles of success. And there are 52 in the book. I give one per week, all right? It's very, very important to understand what that is. But I cover the four categories: preparation, building of the principles, maintenance, and then self-actualization, all right? And I break out the principles into those four categories to help entrepreneurs to understand the rules of engagement and how they can be successful. This is one of the principles I talk about called the first hit point, and that simply says that there is an event. I've seen this in successful businesses over time, every single one of them. There is an event that occurs that is a turning point for their business. It's amazing. Every single case, I call it the first hit point or first hit principle, right? Spiritual fortitude is tied into some of the principles. Dr. King made it very clear. He talked about the final morality of the universe, right? This is one key principle, and that is this, and I use this all the time. I think my peers in PRT do too, is that when I engage and I compete, I expect to win. Follow me? I expect to win. I don't go into it thinking, well, maybe I'll win, maybe I won't. I expect to win because I believe in the final morality of the universe. So therefore, do I always win? No, right? But back to state of mind. When I don't win, I say, okay, what did I learn from this, and how do I get better? Still win. Amen, brother. You still win, right? So I talk about that final morality of the universe as one of the key principles. The bucket theory is pretty powerful. The principle of likability, folks, if you are an unlikable person, if you are an unlikable person, if you have an unlikable spirit, I don't care how smart you are, you will not be successful long term. Not sustainable, okay? Likability is very, very key. Talk about the asking model, how to ask for help. Young people, how do you ask in humility, right? You'd be amazed if you ask folks, they will help you. And then quadrant 4, know your resources and make them your own. Know your resources and make them your own. I want to go through this at lunchtime. It talks about alliances and strategic partnerships, right? How do you get people to help you? Recognizing that we need help, that we need people to help us, how do you do it? How do you feel, how do you build alliances and partnerships, right? That's going to be really, really key. And so we'll talk about that at lunchtime to go into some more details. So I'm going to jump through this because I'm going to cover a lot of this at lunchtime, give you a little taste, a little appetite for what I talk about. But what I will conclude on, though, is a story about a master strategist who used the power of working together and working with people in order to do great things. And his name was Hannibal. Hannibal, the great African general, Hannibal, right? Story goes, this map was drawn, shows in 218 BC. So at that time, who controlled the known world in 218 BC? What power? Rome, very good. The Romans. They were some bad boys and girls, right? Bad means good, you know. They were bad boys and girls. They were powerful, right? But there was also another community here in what now is Libya and Tunisia, right? There was a man named Hannibal who was here. So you had the Roman Empire that was based here, and you had Hannibal who was based here, and you had the Mediterranean Sea, the known world at that time, right? And for years, they had these skirmishes between Hannibal and the Romans, Hannibal and the Romans, because Hannibal was a bad dude. You know what bad means good? You know what dude means, right? Dude's an old school term, dude. He was a bad dude, bad man. What would young folks say, millennials? What would you say, bad what? Millennials, what do you say? What do you say, millennials? Bad person? Okay, bad person, okay. So Hannibal was he was a bad person, right? So they would skirmish all throughout the Mediterranean Sea, right? So one day Hannibal said, you know what? I am sick and tired of these Romans. Like I said years ago, I'm sick and tired of being poor. He said, I'm going to take control of my destiny. I'm not going to be passive. I'm going to be intentional. So what did he do? He said, I will, it's 218 BC, he said, I will attack the Roman Empire. I will no longer play defense. I will now play offense, right? So you had Hannibal here, The Roman Empire here. Now, the Romans had gotten word that Hannibal might try something. So what they did was they moved some of their army to the southern tip of their empire here, anticipating an attack from the south, from what is now Tunisia, to attack up through what's now Sicily and Italy and go that way. But Hannibal did the unthinkable. He said, no, I will march my army instead around northern Africa, and I will continue up through the Horn, continuing to now what is Spain, southern Europe, and I will, in 218 BC, I will attack the Roman Empire. So at 218 BC, that is what Hannibal did. But what I want to leave you with is not what he did, but how he did it. What you may not have noticed on this map here, there are different groups of people that he had to go through in order to get to the Romans. He had the Numidians here. They were tall, dark Africans. And you had the Moors who were here. They were of African and Arab ancestry. And you had the Iberians who were here, who were of Spanish ancestry. Then you had the Celts who were here, who were Scottish and Irish backgrounds. And then the Gauls who were here, and they were of French ancestry. Hannibal knew, he said, I cannot fight all these people who were normally his enemies. He said, I cannot fight through all of them and have resources left to get to the Romans. So what must I do? I got to figure out how to work together. So what did he do? On his path to get to Rome, he would send out 2 ambassadors to meet with each group before he got there. And he would say, look, here's the deal. Here's the value proposition, okay? We have a common enemy. That enemy is Rome. Therefore, let us stop fighting each other. Let us join forces together, and let's go and march to Rome as one. So he did that for the Numidians, the Moors, the Iberians, the Celts, and the Gauls. By the time he got to Rome, he had 100,000 soldiers, 50 elephants, massive artillery, and sisters. He had a lot of bad sisters in his army, and they were warriors. What they do, they wage war on the Roman Empire. So my friends, as you go through this day and through your businesses and your life, think about this. Think about the fact that the way we create wealth through entrepreneurship is by working together. Can I get an amen to that? And that's why we're here today. Thank you very much. I'm done this session. Any questions, please? Tony, how we doing time? Okay. Any questions I can answer for you on this session? I'll be here all day. Just, yes, sir, Lance. The question was, did Hannibal win? The answer is yes. But let me give you the backdrop. Hannibal waged war on the Roman Empire for years. Ultimately, the Romans who had much bigger resources were able to beat him back and to send him back to his home. However, what that did was it changed the state of mind of the people of his community. So now they were no longer afraid of the Romans. They may have lost that battle, but win the war, right? That's what happened. Tony? Please. Yes. Yes, sir. Great question, Tony. Thank you very much. He said there's a difference here between religion, religiosity, and spirituality, and he's correct. So religion, in my view, Tony, is just a vehicle that puts you in contact with your spirituality. Spirituality, in my view, sir, says that you believe that there is a greater power than yourself. Why is that important in business and life? Because through spirituality, see, if you and I look at the world through eyes of flesh, boy, it would be a depressing situation. I mean, if I was in Cherry Hill, if I had seen my environment through the eyes of the flesh, we were poor, we had rats, we had roaches, we didn't have any food, we didn't have any heat in the wintertime. That was my reality. That was my physical reality. However, Mom and Daddy taught me to view the eyes through the eyes of the Spirit. And through spiritual eyes, I can see what I could be, what I can be, versus what I am, where I am today. And same way in business, Tony. When we went from IT into energy, some folks said, well, how can you go from IT into energy? You're an IT company. But because the eyes of the Spirit, see, I could see the future, and I could believe it. So it's one thing to see the future, but you have to believe it. Because when you see the future and you believe it, what that gives you, my friends, is hope. That's one thing lacking in the world today is hope. The whole Freddie Gray uprising in Baltimore. I told the mayor, the old mayor, and I told the new mayor. The issue there, if you peel back the onion, it is hopelessness. It is economic hopelessness. When people lose hope, especially men, women can better manage it, at least my experience, than men. But men, when we lose hope, we become irrational. We don't think straight. We don't think clearly. And we do things that don't make sense, like burn up your own community because you lost hope. And therefore, Tony, I think that's why spirituality is critical to success in business. And I will tell you, I have not met, in my studies, sir, I have not met a single man or woman who didn't recognize the importance of a spiritual foundation. And they were Jews, they were Christians, they were Muslims, they were Buddhists, all different kinds of religiosity, okay? But the belief that there's a power greater than us, and that power has the ability to influence humanity. And that gives us hope. And when we have hope, then we can change the world. Good question, sir. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, very good. I am done. And I think we have thank you.